Hi there, and welcome back to our Starsector pirate campaign. So, at the end of the last episode, we took down one of the mercenary fleets guarding this Tritachyon black site, and we were able to salvage a number of ships, including an Odyssey and an ARRGH. Given the state that the battle left us in, I've decided not to engage either of the other two mercenary fleets, and so we're heading back to Kallichore to report our success to Elvis. However, we also need to outfit our newly acquired ships, so we'll be making a quick stop over at the ARRGH system to do just that. Also, fair warning, we're going to be jumping around quite a lot during this episode, and unless we encounter any hostile fleets, I'll probably be cutting most of the travel time. And that includes right now as we make our way to the Captain Starworks pirate base. Okay, so we made it to Captain Starworks without incident, and it looks like there's an officer available to recruit here. Even though I don't normally show this, I do actually check for potential recruits every time that we're docked. It just so happens that we've been fairly unlucky with finding new officers during this campaign so far, so this will only be our second one. Fortunately, it looks like this one will be quite useful in the Astral, as she has the Strike Commander ability, though I may mentor her to bring her personality down from aggressive to steady, as I don't like my carriers to charge out in front. I've also chosen the Flux Regulation skill, as most of our ships use shields, so it doesn't make sense for us to get the Phase Core's skill at the moment. Also, I restored the Odyssey, as we have a fair bit of money in the bank, and it's nice to be able to get it up and running right away. I considered restoring the Astral, but it was about 100,000 more than what we could afford. Hopefully in the next few months field repairs will take care of that problem. When it came to equipping the Odyssey, I actually fiddled around for quite a long time, taking weapons off of other ships in our fleet first and seeing if I could find a configuration that I liked. However, what I ended up with didn't actually require any weapons stripped from elsewhere. On the Astral, I replaced one wing of Gladius fighters with Piranha bombers. I then sold off both the Enforcer and the Shrike. They've served us well until now. However, as deployment points will be at a premium from here on out, I can't think of many scenarios in which I'd choose to field them over something else. Then, at the advice of some of you in the comments, I removed safety overrides from the Doom. This freed up plenty of ordnance points, which allowed me to add some point defense lasers, as well as the ion beam that was previously on the Shrike, and an antimatter blaster that we acquired from recent combat. Now back to the Odyssey, what I ended up with was a plasma cannon and high-intensity laser on the left, a squall on the right, and annihilators and breach SRMs on the front. The squalls are new in this update, and I haven't had many chances to try them out so far, though my impression so far seems to be that they're fairly underwhelming. If you found a good use for them, feel free to let me know in the comments below. For the small energy slots, I used tactical lasers on the left, and point defense lasers on the right and rear. In the fighter bays, I added Gladius fighters, as they're the only thing that we have right now. And for hull mods, I built in hardened shields and integrated targeting. I also added resistant flux conduits. Once we find the front shield conversion hull mod, I'll be able to convert the Odyssey to have 360-degree shields, but until then it's going to be vulnerable to being disabled. Finally, I added heavy armor, though this too may go once we convert to front shields. Any remaining points went into vents and then capacitors. I also don't normally show any inventory management, but I thought I'd share just a little bit here. So I normally like to keep between 80 and 100 heavy machinery in my inventory at any given time. There are a few rare cases where you might want to survey a particularly large gas giant or something, but I would say for 99% of cases, 80 to 100 is plenty. For volatiles, I usually keep around 30 at a time. I don't tend to go on massive sector-spanning exploration expeditions, so being able to keep Neutrino Detector active for a whole month is usually more than enough for any trip that I would normally take. Finally, ever since our raid on Hesperus, I've been slowly rebuilding our stock of Marines, and we're up to 500 at this point. I haven't quite figured out when the planetary invasions are going to start, but it's going to be soon. Okay, with all that sorted, it's finally time to start making our way back to Kallichore. In case you're wondering what happened to the ARRGH or the Heron, I haven't done anything to them. They're just quietly drifting along at the back of our fleet, secretly munching on supplies and fuel, I'm sure. If I remember to, I'll probably drop them off at one of the abandoned stations, but if not, that's okay. I mean, it was only in the past episode or two that I discovered we had a petting zoo, and who knows how long that's been around. And now we can finally return to the loving arms of our one and only Alvis Sebastian. I wonder what sort of great misadventure he'll send us on this time. Hey Alvis, did you miss me? I found that guy you were looking for. Now, whisper sweet nothings in my ear while I count up these credits. Wait, what do you mean you don't have any more missions for us? But I had so many plans for us. How can you just walk away like that? Walk away from us? Well, Alvis has very unceremoniously turned us down until we speak with Baird, so it's time to pay the provost a visit and find out what's going on here. When we do, Baird gives us a little backstory about what happened to her predecessor. Apparently after his little experiment broke the glacier jump point, the hegemony came in, removed him from his post, and confiscated most of the research data. However, even though she's rather sparse on details, it's clear that Baird still has some sort of interest in what they were doing, and she goes on to explain the two tasks that she has for us. The first is to retrieve the research data. It's currently being held in the Kallichore archive, and she puts us in touch with an old acquaintance of hers, Rayan Arroyo, a senior executive of the Tritachyon Corporation who can help us with that task. The second is to locate someone named Scylla Carouse, one of the lead scientists of the jump point experiment. Apparently, even though she was leading the research, she didn't have a fancy title to go along with it, so the hegemony inspectors passed over her completely. Nonetheless, she's left the academy and gone into hiding somewhere, and Baird wants us to find her and give her a message. In typical Baird fashion, she doesn't tell us what the message actually says, but she seems fairly confident that whatever it is will convince Carouse to come back. In the end, we confront Baird about what her stake in all this might be, but she's wonderfully cryptic about the whole thing, and so we're left with more questions than answers. We're now faced with the question of which one of these tasks we want to tackle first, or if we'd rather set out on our own for now. In a normal campaign, I would do the Kallichore Archive mission first, as it puts us in touch with Rayan Arroyo, who afterwards becomes a high-level military contact, who can hand out some fairly lucrative bounties, particularly on fleets of Tritachyon deserters, which can be a good source of high-tech ships and weapons if you're planning on staying friendly with Tritech. We have no such intentions here, but I think I'm going to start with the Kallichore Archive mission just the same, so it's off to the Hypersol system to meet with Arroyo. And I'm going to enter through one of the outlying jump points, just so we don't get any nasty surprises. So I decided to make a quick detour to Dawn, as it's in the same system, and we haven't been there before, so it's a good chance to see if there's any officers to recruit, missions at the bar, and do some general housekeeping. Fortunately, we've stumbled upon this old spacer, who has a story about encountering a weird red planet, and then getting attacked by some really scary ships. He's unwilling to tell us too much, but puts us in contact with someone who may be able to give us some more details. Then, after picking up some more supplies, we're back on our way to see Arroyo. The bad news is, Arroyo is holed up on a planet with a high-tech star fortress, which is a formidable threat even considering the fleet we currently have. The good news is there's only one patrol about, and it only has 4 frigates. They'll buzz around us and generally be annoying while we're here, but they definitely won't try to engage unless we get in range of the station. Still, I prefer to avoid them, though fancy flying with a fleet of this size is all but impossible. Great, we made it. Time to pay this guy a visit. So when we first get in touch with Arroyo, he cuts the conversation fairly short, as it's clear we're touching on some topics that could get him in some serious hot water. So he invites us down to his personal estate, planetside. And on the way there, we get a taste of life in Tritachyon territory. The sort of corporate dystopia that sounds like it's right out of one of Jeff Bezos' wet dreams. Our actual conversation with Arroyo is fairly brief. We tell him about the job, he hints that Provost Baird helped him get into his current position a while back, and that he gives us the contact information for a hacker named Gargoyle, who he claims is just the man to help us hack into the Kallichore archive. And before we leave, we share a quick drink. Overall, he doesn't seem as sleazy as you would expect a corporate executive to be. Maybe in the future we'll give him a heads up before we burn this place to the ground. Unfortunately, on the way out, we've been caught by that little patrol. I know we can safely disengage because the Star Fortress won't be able to join them in chasing us down. But they can still harry us, and that's going to cost us several hundred supplies worth of combat readiness that I would have preferred to keep. Anyway, we're out of range now, so it's onward to Mayasura to find Gargoyle. Luckily, it's a short and uneventful trip, and the defenders here definitely do not feel as if they're paid well enough to fight us. Which means we get to meet the Persean sector's oldest teenager, who wants you out of his room right now. And on your way out, would like to reiterate that it's not just a phase, Mom. Well, that's too bad, Gargoyle. You see, we were just about to tell you where to find an absolutely massive stash of Catgirl pictures. What's that? You want us to come back now? Yeah, I meant what I said. Oh, well, there's the rub, buddy. 'Cause, you see, they're in the Kallichore archive, and I don't think anyone knows how to hack into that. Oh, you think you have a way to do it? Tell me more. Well, now that we have Gargoyle on board, we're gonna have to pick up a gadget from a few of his friends over at Nova Maxios, and then install it into the coordinal comms relay. The first part is a simple fetch quest, which we've accomplished many times before. The second part is going to require some stealth, which for a fleet our size could be a bit of a challenge, but we can get to that when it comes. Let's make a quick stop at Lost Acropolis first, and then we can continue on to Nova Maxios to pick up that thingamabob. Well, as expected, it was a rather uneventful trip, which gave the crew plenty of time to party with the Beta AI core, who really seems to have accepted its new life as a disco ball, and actually recently requested to have some RGB lights installed. Anyway, we're here to pick up Gargoyle's little toy, and we're shown the way by a guy named Loke, or perhaps Loki? In any case, he looks and acts like a complete psychopath, so he's probably too busy fantasizing about how he's gonna season our liver before eating it to worry about the fact that we don't know how to say his name. Fortunately, our friendly neighborhood cannibal doesn't seem to be too hungry today, so it's off to chat with the contact the old spacer gave us about the red planet, and after just a few moments of back and forth, she gives us the information that we need. Then, after another quick stop over at Cantor's Den to check for potential recruits, it's time to try sneaking deep into hegemony territory with a bunch of capital ships. The smart way to do this would probably be to drop off everything except for the Doom at an abandoned space station, and then go in with just the single phase ship to better avoid detection. But we've done nothing but fly around for quite a few weeks now, and the boys are itching for a fight, so let's try brute force instead. The way that stealth missions work, you count as being undetected as long as there are no witnesses. In theory, this means that as long as you've eliminated all of the witnesses, you can get away with pretty much anything. But putting this into practice can be a bit tricky. For instance, if you soundly defeat a fleet of enemy ships, and then try to salvage a debris field or survey a planet, the surviving fleet won't count as tracking your movements even if they're still hanging around. But for stealth missions, this isn't the case. You'll have to eliminate every ship, no matter how small, otherwise you won't be able to pull it off. As someone who isn't particularly into being sneaky, I wish defeated fleets would just sort of bugger off after you're done with them. But what about you guys? Do you like the stealth approach? And if so, how do you feel about its implementation in Starsector? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Anyway, back to what we were doing here. So there's a pair of small fleets guarding the coordinal comms relay at the moment, and surprisingly we weren't actually hostile with the hegemony before we started this fight. But unsurprisingly, this patrol wanted nothing to do with us after we made our intentions clear. So I've spent a story point to force them into taking us head on. And we'll want to capitalize on the opportunity by eliminating the smaller ships first. As story point or not, they will decide to flee once these Falcons go down. In terms of our fleet composition, I've gone with the Odyssey, Doom, Hammerhead, and Omen. Ships that should have no trouble holding their own, but are fast enough to chase if need be. One problem that we've actually run into here is that the Falcons went down a little too easily, so we're gonna have to be quick if we want to eliminate these frigates before they get away. Let's hope the Omen is able to make judicious use of its ability, and shut down their engines for long enough for us to catch up. Alright, so far so good. Now we just need to make good on the catching up part. 1 down, 2 to go. Now, where are they? I suppose another problem that I have with stealth in Starsector is its reliance on the presence of phase ships in your fleet. I feel as if a large part of my reluctance to ever take the stealth approach are due to the limitations on fleet composition that it seems to impose, and also the fact that phase ships are some of the strongest combat ships in the game. The Doom, Harbinger, and Afflictor all seem to have fairly strong reputations within the community, and that's not even mentioning certain notable additions in this update. And if I have a whole fleet composed of nothing but that, why would I ever want to avoid combat? Anyway, we're all wrapped up here, and I'm hoping that with no combat ships left in this fleet, they'll just sort of go away. But I suppose I won't have to wait too long if I'm going to regret that decision. So, on to the next one. And same drill here, we're going to force them to take us head on, and hopefully try to take out the smaller ships before the Falcons go down. And I'm just going to declare a full assault right away, because if I lose any ships to this fleet, I might as well just pack it in and uninstall the game. I also imagine that at least a few of you have gotten a bit bored of me flying this hammerhead, and my reluctance to switch to something else is largely due to my familiarity with this one. But for the sake of keeping things interesting, how about this? Starting from the next episode, I'll try to avoid piloting the same ship twice in a row. So for example, if I choose to stick with the hammerhead in one fight, I'll have to go with something else, like the Doom in the next one. I can't promise it'll happen every time, and I do have a tendency to forget things when there's a lot going on, as is often the case just before I'm about to start a major engagement, but I'll do the best I can. Alright, well I started the fight by saying that I was going to take out the smaller ships first, but then I got tunnel vision and broke off to fight that Falcon all by myself. Fortunately, the rest of the fleet seems to have remembered the game plan, so both of the hounds have been taken care of. And now, brothers and sisters, if you'll kindly join me in a prayer. Dear Lud, please grant our hegemony kin the wisdom to see that their Dram and Hermes have not been blessed by your almighty fortitude, and should instead seek the warm embrace of their high hegemon at Chickamaustock, lest we be forced to smite them with great vengeance. Burn bright. And now we wait. Hell, if this works, maybe I'll drop the pirate commission and join the church instead. Well, that's not a good sign. Now we have even more patrols floating around. I take back everything I said. Apparently Lud had nothing but vacuum between his ears. Maybe this would work better if we turned Chickamaustock into a smoking crater first. Alas, we do not have the fuel. Ooh, I think we might have a chance here. Let's go dark and see if it'll let us do it. Excellent. Thank you, Lud. Maybe I was wrong about you after all. Maybe I'll have some of the faithful read me a sermon when I land on Gilead with a few thousand Marines. Now, let's see if our pupescent provocateur has procured any new cactural pictures for our perusal. Hey Beavis, do you find what you were looking for? Oh, you did, but you forgot to turn off cookies. Rookie mistake, bud. That's alright, I got your back. What a delicious turn of events. It seems that despite his initial bluster, the kid now wants us to take him to school. Now, I wouldn't normally be this generous, but it does give us an opportunity to reconcile with Elvis, so I think we can be a little accommodating. In the meantime, it seems the hegemony has something to say about our previous tomfoolery, and I suppose we could try to talk our way out of what is obviously a miscommunication. But I'm having some trouble hearing him, and we're going to a tunnel now. Oh, look at that, the call's been dropped. That's too bad. I guess we'll have to settle things the old-fashioned way. We're a little handicapped in terms of deployment points at the moment. One of the changes in this update was that the split of deployment points is now determined by the number and level of officers contained in each fleet. As we currently have only 2 officers, and the hegemony fleet presumably has many, they start with the larger 60% share of the maximum battle size, which I currently have set at the default value of 300. So basically, the enemy fleet can start by deploying as many as 180 deployment points worth of ships, while we are currently limited to 120. So the first thing I'm going to do here is take some of these capture points so we can try and even things out. Meanwhile, taking these capture points doesn't directly benefit the hegemony fleet, as neither side can ever have more than 60% of the maximum battle size in deployment points. However, denying these points from us would allow them to maintain their deployment point advantage for the remainder of the fight. This new methodology means that unless you have a mod that increases your maximum number of officers, or their levels, you'll always have situations, such as against larger remnant ordos, where you start with a disadvantage in deployment points. I was never one to fly around with massive fleets of capital ships anyway, but I have nonetheless found myself being more mindful about taking and holding capture points, so I suppose in this regard the update has succeeded in its intent. Now it looks like the bulk of the enemy fleet has gone to the other side of the map, so we're going to head in that direction as soon as we finish capturing this point. But in the meantime, we have enough to deploy the Doom now, so let's send it in to support our capital ships. At the moment, some of you are probably noting that if we had simply salvaged the Brawler and Medusa that we lost in the previous episode, I could be sending them out to do this grunt work instead, and you would be absolutely correct. And I wrote my justification for why I didn't salvage either of those ships as a reply to a comment left by Sebastian FV for that episode, but I think it bears repeating here for those of you that missed it. Basically, any ship that gets itself blown up is a loser in my eyes, and I don't take back losers. It's not a rule for the campaign per se, it's just something that I found myself doing, and I don't really know where it all started. Perhaps it was originally a way for me to weed out the ship builds that weren't working, but at this point it's already become pretty well ingrained and I just do it instinctively. Call it my own personal Starsector mysticism if you want, or a way to get rid of the bad juju. In any case, the Brawler and Medusa got wrecked, and that's how they're gonna stay. Meanwhile, we have a few more deployment points to spend here, so I'm gonna bring out the Falcon and the other Hammerhead. Along with what's already on the field, that should be more than enough to keep the enemy occupied until we arrive. So, apart from not salvaging my own ships, I'm sure I have other gameplay quirks that have yet to reveal themselves. But what about you guys? What do you find yourself doing in Starsector that has no real rational justification, but you've managed to justify for yourself in your own personal headcanon? Feel free to share in the comments below. Well, we're finally closing on the enemy fleet now, and it looks like the ships closest to us are a Sunder and 2 Griffins. Let's try to concentrate our forces on a target and work our way from left to right. And it looks like the Doom is trying to make a good first impression. Let's see if we can finish what he started. Whoops, well that's embarrassing. Looks like we have no command points left. I suppose we'll have to rely on our ships taking the initiative for now. And I suppose we're not entirely helpless on our own. I'm just gonna back off a little bit here so that we're not caught with our shields down if this Griffin decides to unload. And his buddy in the back has sabots, so we want to watch out for that too. Alright, you've teased us enough. Come give us a hug. Alright, where are we? It looks like the Eagles are a little bit more exposed at the moment. Let's see if we can work our way over there without the Onslaught getting too frisky with us. It's so lovely having safety overrides and being able to cycle your shields on and off between venting. Whenever I fly a ship that doesn't have it, I have to remind myself that safety overrides is not the default behavior. Well, we have one command point now, so let's see if we can get our ships doing something useful. How about the Falcon and the Doom on this Enforcer, and the capital ships on that Eagle? The Onslaught can make a lot of noise, but everything in our fleet can outrun it, so I'm content to save it for last. Hey, Omen, I know I didn't speak very highly of the Onslaught, but there's no need for you to tease him like that. Well, I've managed to work myself into a rather unenviable position. Hopefully the Odyssey can pull at least one of these Eagles off of me. Or maybe we don't need the help. It looks like these Eagles don't have any kinetic damage at all. I don't know if I should be surprised that the capital ships killed their Eagle first, but I do feel a little crestfallen. I suppose now's not the best time to be thinking about that. Let's do some fancy maneuvering so we can use this Enforcer as cover. will use its corpse too. Alright, I hear that griffin calling to me. Let's go get it. I don't like this one so much. I think it's time we taught it a lesson about the power of friendship. Never mind, there's been a change in the curriculum. This lesson is called Cover Your Butt. And look at this sneaky little kite trying to do the same thing to us. Fine, do you want to teach the class then? Oh, you're feeling shy now? Okay. How about you head on down to the principal's office and tell him what you just did? It's fine, I'll wait. And look at the Doom low-key trying to take us out so they can replace us as captain. These little pirate rascals, they grow up so fast. You see that, gargoyle? Let's see your quick little hacker fingers blow up an onslaught. I guess the dumb rocket jockey had a use after all, huh? It's okay, you don't have to answer. Just take your butt back to the brig until we get to Kallichore. And on that note, I think I'll head back to the captain's quarters for some much needed R&R. So until next time, thank you so much for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you out there in the sector. Hey there again. Before you get too excited, this is not a bonus battle. I just want to address the fact that this video took a little bit longer than usual to complete. Thus far I've been trying to stick to a schedule of releasing a new video every 3 or 4 days. But depending on my other obligations, this won't always be possible. I hope those of you keeping up with the series in real time can understand, and will simply enjoy the videos as they come out. Also, I've been talking about invading planets for long enough, so next episode we're actually gonna do it. This is just a sneak peek of what's in store. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you out there in the sector.